So I thought it was really important to discuss sales, because sales is the one thing that we all need, but we all don't know that we need. So if you do want to start a business, whether, like an online business or any business for that matter, the one thing that we all sort of need essentially is sales. And even just in your day job, I remember working as an employee, being an employee, and thinking that I didn't need sales, not knowing that everything in the employment world is political, and everything is you having to sell yourself, you having to all the way from an interview, selling yourself in an interview, to selling the projects that you're working on, the progress you've made, and also selling the relationships you've built, because a lot of companies do like 360 feedback. We don't even recognize how much sales impacts every single thing that we do. Any thoughts? Any comments around sales? Cool.
We do and we don't know. When you know that you're selling, or you know the concepts around selling, it will help you with everything really, to win over internal stakeholders and etc. So agreed.
I think understanding what you're saying, I'm intrigued to hear more, but I think when it comes to maybe how you've worded it with regards to the employment world makes so much, but then going for roles, sales would have been the one thing that I would be like, no, I'm avoiding that. I couldn't, you hear it and you just kind of, for me, but what you're kind of mentioning means it's something to, be open and embrace, obviously with a better understanding, I suppose.
I have a little bit of experience with it's one of those things, like what you were saying, that even when I was doing it, I was just like, I don't want to be doing this.
No, I get that, and I think this is my point. A lot of people don't gravitate towards sales naturally. It's not. People see sales as just a career in sales, but you forget that if you ever want to run your business, you need to sell something. Whether it's online, whether it's in person, whether it's through events, whether it's on the phone, whether it's face to face, whether it's just by posting content on Instagram, Twitter, not Twitter, X now, you're always selling. What business owners tend to do who don't like sales, they tend to call it marketing instead. And to me, they're very different. Marketing is how you get people to know about you and your product, whereas sales is them actually hitting the buy button. So good marketing should lead to sales, but at the end of the day, the end outcome should be sales. Branding is a whole different aspect. Branding is more about that long-term feeling that you're creating when they see your brand, when they hear about you and your products. So this is titled How to Dominate in Sales, and it's really trying to help us all understand why people don't buy from us. I have a lot of experience in all types of selling, and it was really helpful for me to get to grips with why people don't buy from me and didn't buy from me, so I could rectify those and devise a better plan to sell better and therefore make more money. Regardless of your context, whether it's in the workplace environment, it's always important that you're selling yourself. You're selling your projects, you're selling the relationship you've created, you're selling the code that you've coded, you're selling whatever that thing that you're doing is. It's unfortunate because in this day and age, you'd think that companies value just talent, but they actually value the person who can communicate the best, and they actually value the person who can actually put themselves in front of the relevant stakeholders the best as well. So it's something to bear in mind. So if you know me, I love a scripture, and I think this is an important one. Now, you don't have to be a Christian here, but just to be transparent, I'm a Christian, so I'll typically come with Bible verses. My principles come from the Bible, and it really helps. So I'll start with a scripture. It's Proverbs 11:26. He that withholdeth corn, the people shall curse him, but blessing shall be upon the head of him that selleth it. And what I understand the scripture to mean is selling is important. And, if you have something that's valuable, you're not expected to give it away for free. Everyone needs to eat, everyone needs to make money. Whereas if you have something valuable and you're keeping it to yourself, whether it's a business idea, whether it's an opportunity, it could be anything, sell it. Be comfortable with selling. Selling is not a bad thing. I believe all of us in here are trying to find ways to start businesses or make money or add value in the world, and you need to feel comfortable with selling. Even if you're going to start a charity, you need to sell your idea to people that are going to donate. Everything is sales, regardless of what your mission is. So be comfortable with selling is what I wanted to highlight with this scripture. So understanding rejection in sales. So I wanted to talk a bit about my experience. So I worked as a salesperson when I graduated from university. Before that, I did like a telesales job. But my first few jobs were in sales, and I was whack. I'll be very honest with you. I was absolutely whack. But I just had that sort of mentality that, you know what, I'm rubbish right now. Especially when I got into like high-end sales. Like when I was doing telesales, selling talk and broadband and internet to people, I thought I was good at it. But then when it came to actually selling more high ticket products and more sort of intelligent consultative products, I wasn't that good. I'll just be very transparent with you guys. But I kept at it, and I was very hardworking, and because they saw how hardworking I was, they were more inclined to give me more opportunities. They were more inclined to give me more training and that kind of thing. And then what I found was that when it comes to selling, rejections are opportunities to refine our strategies and improve outcomes. So by analyzing the sales I didn't get, I was able to identify patterns and adjust my tactics accordingly. Some of you know that my career changed. I moved from sales to recruitment, and then from recruitment I became a head of talent within a tech company, and then a director of talent, and then I left to do my sort of business full time, because I always had side hustles from like 2020, not even 2020, like 2018. I always had side hustles, and eventually your side hustles catch up to your salary and you're like, why am I doing this? Let me just go all in on this. And by the way, this is actually doing this sort of NXU is my side hustle now. So my main job, for those that don't know, is I work as a consultant. So I go into companies and I help them with their talent management strategies. So things like recruitment, learning and development, all sorts of stuff. So that's really what I do as my day job. So I spend a lot of my time talking to new clients, you know, trying to win new business, trying to win new projects for me and my team. So that's my actual day job, and this is what I do on the side, teaching people how to make money online and how I've done it as well, and how I've been, you know, been relatively successful doing it. So why people don't buy? I think the number one reason is a lack of trust. One thing we don't always understand is if we don't truly believe in the product, and if we doubt the product that we're selling, you know, whether it's our own business, whether it's our own ability to be the person who's running that business, people can feel that. It's like a mirror. People can sense that you're not really feeling it, or you're not really confident in it, or you're not really trusting in yourself. As the person selling fails to effectively convey the value. Now, a lot of us, when we sell, we talk about features first, and then after features we talk about benefits. Some people graduate to benefits. So features is basically saying what the thing does, you know. So, you know, if I'm selling a phone, you can use it to call people. You can also use it for the internet. You can also use it as a calculator. Those are the features. Now, what do those features mean to you? What's important to you? Oh, you know, you can use this phone to contact anyone in the world. Think about the most important person to you in this world right now. You can use it to contact them. You can even video call them. That's talking about more of a benefit, because you're talking about what that feature means to them more directly. Talking about value is about effectively conveying what that thing can do for the person. I'm going to go into this in a bit more detail later on. And then why people don't buy, self-perception as well. You know, as a seller, your insecurity, if you don't really believe in the product, or you don't really believe in yourself, people can feel that. People can get that sense of you. So it's very, very palpable. So you need to be careful with that. Biases. So from personal experiences shape perceptions. So recognize the biases to communicate better, and clarity as well. If you're not clear on what you're selling, and it's ambiguous, and you're not actually communicating and conveying that message properly, people tend to misunderstand really, really easy when it comes to sales. It's so easy to misunderstand things, and one has to be very careful with that. Jargon as well, confusing customers with complex industry language. You know, I always find that if I can convey a message like I'm conveying it to a 5-year-old, that is the hugest, like, it's the best way to sell anything. You don't assume because it's a complex product you have to make it complex, or you have to sound smart. It's really important just to sort of make it as simple as possible. Distancing yourself. When people use too much jargon or techno babble, they just seem out of touch with customers. And I realized that I wanted to, because when I started sales, I was young, I was inexperienced, I wanted to impress. So while I'm trying to impress, I'm trying to sound smarter, sound better at it. But the best thing I should have done was just been myself and just explained it in an articulate but clear way, and by keeping it simple essentially. And then another thing is what I call the desperado salesperson. People can smell desperation on us, you know. It's desperate salespeople actually repel customers, whereas confident salespeople build that trust. You know, they build that trust with the people that they're selling to. I call it the Louis Vuitton effect. You know, helping people perceive your product as valuable and exclusive increases the product's perceived value. You know, it's all about how we're creating value psychologically in people's minds. And one way to overcome desperation is focus on understanding the customer's need and providing genuine value. I believe in sales, it's less of you doing the talking and more about you being able to ask really good questions so that you're leading the customer on a journey through asking really good questions, you know. And also, even before that, you have to believe in your product. I think a really good salesperson doesn't have to believe their product, but then you go from being a salesperson to being a crook or a charlatan or a scammer, basically. And it's kind of, what's the word? It's kind of narcissistic to sell a product you don't even believe in. I genuinely believe that. So be careful of that. But overcome desperation. I don't think people should sell just to make money, you know. That's 100% the goal. Commission is a goal, but that shouldn't be the primary goal. I think the primary goal should be to truly add value to the customer. That should always be the primary goal. And by the way, put this in your context, in what, you know, if you're trying to sell something online, if you're trying to start a business and you're going to need to win clients someday, or you're trying to get a promotion at work or a salary increase, everything I'm saying, try to apply it in your own context. Or if you're trying to gain new clients for like your coaching business, for example, or your online business or whatever that is. So active engagement in sales. So engage customers with thought-provoking questions. I mentioned this, and prompts to keep them involved. You can't just sort of be talking at your customers, talking. You know, it's not a lecture, it's not a university lecture, you know, it's actually a conversation where you're actually trying to get something out of them. If you've been sold to by someone and you just found that they've just been talking at you, just type 1 in the comment box so I know that that's happened to you as well and you've experienced that. And if you haven't, then just type 2 and then I know that you haven't experienced that. Cool, good to know. People be talking at us, you know, and we don't, you know, we just kind of like, we're polite, so we just kind of want to, you know, so it's happened to everyone effectively, which is interesting to see. We're naturally, especially British people, we're naturally very polite, so we'll let people finish and we won't cut people off. But I would recommend you cut people off and be like, hey, I've heard you speak, you haven't even tried to understand me or what I need, you know, just cut them off if you need to. That will reset them. And actually, you know, I like speaking to salespeople because I want to see if I get a good salesperson on the phone, I'm here for it. I want to learn from them, and if there's a good product, why not buy? Use Q&A, feedback and demos to create dynamic sales experience and build rapport as well. And always add a personal touch. So everyone you're dealing with, make sure it's personal. You know, tailor your style, your pace and details to each customer's needs and preferences. You know, some people need a bit more pushing. Like if you're dealing with someone who's pushy and who's short for time, you need to be pushy with them. If you're dealing with someone who's a bit more on the patient side and a bit more sort of like, you know, dilly-dallying with you, then you can actually lead them a bit more. And then use captivating stories to illustrate the benefits that create emotional connections and make your pitch memorable as well. So I mentioned monologues earlier, so I won't go into that now. You know, one-sided sales pitches never work. If you are going to sell stuff online, especially if it's education products, you're going to need to understand how to engage people through Q&A, discussions, polls, etc. So perceived value perception versus intrinsic value. So I think a lot of times the mistake that a lot of people make is when selling is they don't know there's a bridge between true value, which is intrinsic value, and how the value is perceived, you know. And the goal isn't to explain to the buyer the intrinsic value. The goal is to increase the perceived value and help them to understand how valuable what you're selling is based on their perception. So distinguish between functional value and it basically needs to be emotional. For it to be valuable to someone, it needs to connect with them on an emotional level. Everybody, no matter how logical you think you are, everybody buys things using emotions as opposed to using logic. They just justify their emotions with logic. I'll give you an example. I really want a Lamborghini Urus. Yeah. There's absolutely no logical reason to buy that car, especially living in London. I'm not going to be able to drive it fast because I live in London. It's not the most reliable car, you know. It's not the most what else? I've heard a few of my friends have Urises. Sometimes they turn it on and it doesn't even start, and it costs a heck of a lot to maintain. Someone once said, buying something isn't the same as being able to afford it. Anyone can buy anything, but can you afford it? Can you afford the ongoing cost, the maintenance? Hearing all of that, I'm just like, heard you. I like that car. I just like the way it looks. I like Lamborghini as a brand. I like the fact that it's just such a cool car. So regardless of all the logical reasons not to buy it, I've actually processed logical reasons to buy it because of how I feel emotionally. And that's literally the difference between perceived value and intrinsic value. If you can elicit an emotional reaction out of the person buying. So for example, in my workplace, on my ascent to becoming a director, while I was adding value, I recognized that the value I was adding was great, but if I wasn't communicating that value, if I wasn't bigging myself up, if I wasn't showing people how passionate I am about the work, not just my manager but the other stakeholders, I had to increase the perceived value by making it a lot more emotional, by being a lot more emotionally invested in my communication of the value I was adding in the workplace. Otherwise, people just think you're just a button pusher. You're just there watching the time, and then once it's time to go home, you go home. You always have to increase the perceived value. I was a manager, I had a team. I just had to be able to communicate what my team were doing, communicate what I was doing, and it was basically became a job of communication. And if you were in the first call, I mentioned how the 4 levels of value. The first level is doing the work, the second level is being a manager, the third level is communication, and the fourth level is ideas. So we're not going to go into that now, but think about it. The third level, being able to communicate, trumps being a manager, and it also trumps being the person who's doing it. So it's really important that we get that communication on deck. So pricing. So this is something that's real to me right now, the pricing. So how can I make this more valuable to people? So when you're thinking about pricing, always think about value, and don't assume that you need a low price. You don't want to be in a race to the bottom from a pricing perspective, because you're down there with all the sort of the low level people. Whereas if you want to price something at a more premium price or a higher price, then you want to pack it with value essentially, and also make people understand what life would be like without you. So like say in the workplace, create so much value in what you do that when you're not around, I have more than enough meetings. So having that understanding really help people understand the consequence of not being involved in your product, or not being involved in you, or not buying. What does it feel like to not buy? What does it feel like to not promote me and I leave and I go to another company? Like, you're actually going to feel it, and it's all emotional and it's all psychological. So maximizing sales impact. So make it easy for customers to connect with your sales team and get the info they need. This current world is all about convenience. If you know me, I'm big on automation. Everything I'm trying to achieve is from an automation perspective. I used to have a virtual assistant that would send emails on LinkedIn for me to help me generate calls for me to speak to clients. Now I have a machine that does that. I literally have a tool that does that, which I will be sharing and I will be showing everyone at some point in the coming weeks. I have a tool that does that. Now this tool, all of a sudden I just see people popping up in my calendar that for calls that I need to go on, based on this tool, having conversations with them, sending them the link to my calendar, and they book themselves in. I'm making it easier for customers to connect with me and for them to find me, and I'm putting calls straight into my diary. And by the way, like all of these things, you don't have to wait for me to do lessons on them. Hit me up on WhatsApp and I'll be happy to share stuff with you, or hit me up on the app on the school platform and I'll be happy to share stuff with you. Deeply understand your customers' motivation, their needs, and align it to the strategies to address them. So I have this thing, I think I mentioned it in our call last week. I am genuinely obsessed with the problems of my clients now, and that includes you guys. Like, if I want to have calls with everyone. I'm genuinely obsessed with the problems of my clients, and I want to understand it a bit more, because if I can understand it, I can solve it. So for you to be a better salesperson, you need to really have a deeper understanding of the problems that your clients are facing. Always make it personalized when it comes to sales. Tailor your sales approach to each individual for maximum impact. Like, don't just be a blanket salesperson and just sort of like have the same script for everyone. Have scripts. I have scripts. I'm not going to lie to you. I have scripts, but I have to deviate from those scripts from time to time. But while you're learning, use your script and stick to the script. When you're actually getting results, then you can deviate a bit more. But add some personality. So you're asking everyone questions, and they will give you different answers. So you should be able to deviate, and you sort of deviate accordingly. And sorry, by the way, scripts include when you're asking for a promotion, when you're asking for a raise at work. Like, don't assume it's just for having a phone conversation or a Zoom call with a client. Like, you need scripts. I really do believe in having a script, so you at least know what you're gonna say, and you give yourself the best chance. And you have like a template or some bullet points of what your areas you're gonna cover with whoever you're speaking to. Address issues that can enhance sales outcomes. So adjust to the strategies and techniques that could lead to drastic improvements in sales effectiveness and revenues. So whatever that issue is that the client's trying to make sure that you understand it, and you can adjust your strategies and techniques to facilitate that as well. Basically, the summary of this is, as you're going through your conversation with people, potential clients, customers, etc., address the issues that you've identified rather than sticking to your own plan and not. So for example, if I've prepared to speak to my boss at work, and I'm like, yo, I'm a head of, I want to be a director, and I have my own script, and what they tell me is, hey, you're like 6 months away, but you're lacking in X, Y, and Z. So my script shouldn't be, oh no, I'm 3 months away, because I'm just going to read my script and just not even going to listen to them. The next thing to do is understand where they're coming from. Are they being fair? Are they being realistic? Are they actually telling the truth when it comes to what they're saying about me? Have that conversation based on the reality. I could be a year away and I think I'm 3 months away. So by having a conversation, I can still get what I want. It just means that it's a year away. Then I can negotiate and say, okay, cool, I'm a year away, but what if I can do this sooner? Can I get it in 6 months instead? And then you can actually have a more valuable conversation with people if you do that. So when it comes to enhancing sales, the first thing I always think is self-belief. Cultivate a genuine self-belief. Believe in yourself, believe in what you're selling, believe in your own source. Basically, you genuinely have to. Like, it's so important. Like, I'm just going to be real with black people and ethnic minorities. We don't always believe in ourselves, and we don't always get a fair crack either, because especially in like the corporate world, which is why I think a lot of us, we should be entrepreneurs. We have these limiting beliefs that, oh, they don't like black people, or they don't respect what we do, or etc. But I think if you just put that aside and actually believe in yourself, you can achieve so many things. I remember my moment where I started truly believing in myself. I went to a Tony Robbins conference in maybe like 7-8 years ago. Now I'm gonna say 8 years ago, a Tony Robbins conference, and I don't know, it was just so powerful. It was like one of the big ones in Excel. From that moment, I just said, I have no limiting beliefs. Like, a lot of the things you lot see me do, like you lot see me doing this stuff, maybe you're on my Instagram and you see me post on Instagram and Facebook, I'm not into that kind of stuff. I'll be very real with you. I'm not actually into it. I'm very much a low-key, I don't want to call myself an introvert. I don't like speaking labels, but I'm very much more behind the scenes, low-key. If I could, I would have someone else in the front and I work behind the scenes. That would be a great scenario for me. But I recognize the importance of pushing yourself out and not limiting yourself and not having any limiting beliefs. And that's why I do this now. That's why I'm happy to fail, and I'm happy to fail publicly. Like, I don't mind failing. Like, I'm good to fail. I'm good to post something on Instagram and get 4 likes. No problem. What do I need to do to be better next time? How can I improve on this? What will I learn from those 4 likes? Oh, 4 people liked it. Great. Who are those 4 people? Maybe I should send them a follow-up. Maybe I should send them a free product. Maybe I should find a way to get their email addresses. Having that mentality and making the most out of any situation, I think is so important. So that confidence for me is the first thing. Believe in yourself primarily, and then believe in what you're selling. Like, truly believe in what you're selling. Simplify communication as well as the next thing. Strive for simplicity and precision when it comes to messaging, because for me, using plain language is everything when it comes to sales. Like, no matter who I'm selling to, I've sold financial products. The more complex I make it, the more of a charlatan I feel like I am. My first my second job out of university was an investment management company on the buy side. We had all sorts of like funds, etc., and then the clients had to buy into our funds. The more jargon I used, the less they understood me. The more I simplified